Your mind is a garden, and every single thought you entertain is a seed silently entering the soil of your inner world. Most people walk through life without realizing that the results they are living, the experiences they attract, and the feelings they carry every day are simply the harvest of what they have been planting for years. A garden doesn't grow overnight, but it grows consistently, quietly, and predictably. The mind works exactly the same way. Whatever you allow to take root will eventually grow into something visible, something tangible, something that shapes your behavior, your attitude, your decisions, and ultimately your destiny. If you keep planting seeds of doubt, you will harvest hesitation. If you keep planting seeds of fear, you will harvest limitations. If you keep planting seeds of anger, you will harvest conflict. The soil of the mind does not judge the seed. It simply produces according to what you plant. And this is why being aware of what enters your mind is more important than anything else you do with your life. Most people do not plant intentionally. They let life, people, and circumstances throw seeds into their mental garden. They consume opinions that weaken them, conversations that discourage them, stories that terrify them, and environments that drown them in negativity. They do this without realizing that every input becomes a seed. You cannot expect peace when you consume chaos. You cannot expect clarity when you feed confusion. You cannot expect confidence when you allow insecurity to dominate your inner landscape. Your garden will never lie to you. It will simply mirror what you've been feeding it. And once certain thoughts grow tall and strong, they become beliefs deep, roots that are harder to remove, harder to replace, harder to transform. This is why many people struggle to change their life. They try to change the fruit while ignoring the roots. They want new results while continuing to plant the same thoughts that produce the old results. The most powerful thing about the mind is that it doesn't need much to grow something. A tiny seed, one negative comment, one fearful thought, one moment of self-doubt can become a massive tree if you water it with attention. Attention is the water that nourishes thoughts. The more you think about something, the more real it becomes to you, and the more power it gains over your behavior. That is why you must pay attention to what you dwell on. Every time you replay old failures, you are watering the seeds of insecurity. Every time you imagine the worst possible outcome, you are watering the seeds of fear. Every time you compare yourself to others, you are watering the seeds of inadequacy. The mind responds not to what is true, but to what is repeated. If you repeat something enough, the soil will believe it and make it your reality. But just as weeds grow quickly, so do positive seeds when planted with intention. A single thought of gratitude, if held long enough, begins to shift your emotional state. A single thought of possibility begins to open your imagination. A single thought of self-belief begins to strengthen your inner posture. The soil does not care what you plant. Its job is to multiply whatever you give it. This means that you hold more power over your life than you realize. Because your thoughts are not just passing clouds, they are instructions to your mind. Your inner world behaves according to the nature of the seeds you plant. If you give yourself empowering ideas, your garden becomes fertile, ground for growth, for creativity, for resilience, for strength. If you give yourself toxic ideas, your garden becomes overgrown with patterns that keep you stuck, overwhelmed, and disconnected from your potential. The challenge is that most people do not take time to examine the seeds they carry. They have thoughts growing in their mind that were planted by their childhood, by society, by failure, by criticism, by fear, and they think those thoughts belong to them. But not every seed in your garden was planted by you, and not every seed deserves to stay there. The moment you become aware of this, you begin to understand the real meaning of inner responsibility. It is not just about thinking positively, it is about choosing consciously. It is about recognizing that the mind is always listening to what you expose it to, and that you are constantly shaping your future with every thought you entertain. Just as a gardener removes weeds to protect the flowers, you must remove thoughts that threaten your peace, your growth, and your purpose. And just as a gardener plants intentionally to cultivate beauty and abundance, you must plant thoughts that align with the life you want to live. Because the mind will always produce according to the seed you choose to plant and the attention you choose to give it. You become what you continually expose your mind to, because the mind is shaped through repetition more than anything else. Whatever you allow to enter your awareness again and again begins to form patterns. And those patterns become beliefs that quietly guide your behavior, your reactions, and even the outcomes you attract. People often underestimate how much influence repeated information has on their identity. They think they are choosing their thoughts, but in reality, their thoughts are being chosen for them by the voice they listen to, the content they consume, the environments they stay in, and the conversations they entertain. The subconscious mind is always open, always absorbing, always recording. It never sleeps, and it never rejects what is repeated. It simply takes in whatever is fed to it and makes it part of the mental program that runs your life. If you consistently expose yourself to negativity, criticism, and fear-based information, your mind will eventually adopt those patterns as normal. You will start thinking thoughts that don't even belong to you. You will begin to assume the worst, doubt your abilities, and expect failure even before you start. This is because the mind becomes comfortable with whatever it sees the most. Repetition is the master architect of your internal world. It builds your perspective brick by brick. If you listen to voices that belittle your dreams, you will soon belittle them yourself. If you watch content that glorifies failure or hopelessness, you will begin to see life through the same lens. The mind does not resist what is familiar. It embraces it. That is why so many people remain stuck. They have made the wrong thoughts familiar through continuous exposure. On the other hand, when you expose your mind to empowering ideas, uplifting environments, and constructive voices, you begin to transform from the inside out. Repetition of wisdom builds deeper understanding. Repetition of motivation builds discipline. Repetition of possibility builds a mindset that seeks opportunity instead of excuses. You slowly shift into a person who sees solutions where others see obstacles, who believes in growth even when circumstances seem difficult, who expects better because they have trained their mind to find better. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It happens through consistent exposure to higher thoughts. What you feed your mind repeatedly soon becomes the dominant filter through which you interpret your entire life. Every book you read, every video you watch, every conversation you entertain, every thought you repeat is shaping you. Most people do not realize they are programming their identity with every scroll, every moment of attention, every piece of content they consume. You cannot expect to become confident if you constantly expose yourself to things that trigger insecurity. You cannot expect to become disciplined if you continuously consume distractions. You cannot expect to grow spiritually, emotionally, or mentally if you expose your mind to content that drags you into fear, comparison, or hopelessness. Your exposure determines your expansion. When you repeatedly surround yourself with information that nurtures your potential, you begin to embody confidence, clarity, and strength. When you repeatedly surround yourself with information that weakens your spirit, you begin to internalize limitation. The truth is, the mind is neutral until repetition gives it direction. If you train it with negative input, it will run negative patterns. If you train it with positive input, it will run empowering patterns. And because the subconscious mind works through habit, whatever you repeatedly consume becomes the automatic response system of your life. This is why changing your life requires changing what you expose your mind to. You cannot transform by force. You transform by input. The more you hear something, the more you believe it. The more you believe it, the more you live it. The more you live it, the more it becomes your reality. Repetition creates identity, and identity creates destiny. So you must become intentional about your exposure. Choose what you read. Choose what you listen to. Choose who you allow into your mental space. Choose the voices you trust and the messages you absorb, because every repeated message is planting something within you, building something within you, becoming something within you. Whatever dominates your environment will eventually dominate your mind. And whatever dominates your mind will dominate your life. Your emotional climate is directly influenced by what you allow into your mind, because every thought, every image, every word you consume triggers a response within you. Most people underestimate the connection between their mental intake and their emotional output. You are not just passively observing life. You are actively feeding your mind a constant stream of information that either lifts you or drags you down. The mind and emotions are inseparable. When your mind is filled with fear, doubt, and negativity, your emotions will reflect the same patterns. You will feel anxious, insecure, restless, or frustrated, often without understanding why. Your inner world responds to the content you give it because the mind interprets repeated input as reality. And your emotions are the indicators of that perceived reality. They are the signals that your mental consumption has shaped the state you are living in, the climate you carry inside, and the energy you project to the world. Every time you consume negative news, gossip, criticism, or fear-inducing content, you water the seeds of tension and worry. Your body responds as if you are in real danger. Your mind rehearses problems that may never exist, and your heart beats with unnecessary stress. This is why some people can be surrounded by opportunity, but still feel stuck, overwhelmed, or powerless. Their emotional climate has been programmed by repeated exposure to thoughts and ideas that create limitation rather than expansion. Conversely, when you feed your mind uplifting, constructive, and empowering content, your emotions begin to shift. You start to feel hope, possibility, and a sense of control over your life. Joy, peace, and confidence are not random occurrences. They are the natural result of the mental environment you cultivate. Your emotional climate is the direct reflection of the dominant thought you allow in, the media you consume, and the conversations you entertain. Many people mistake their feelings as being caused by external circumstances, but the truth is that your inner state often creates your perception of circumstances. Two people can face the same situation and respond entirely differently because their emotional climate has been shaped by what they repeatedly consume. One sees threat, the other sees opportunity. One feels fear, the other feels courage. One panics, the other thinks clearly. The difference is not luck or talent, it is the ongoing diet of the mind. Every repeated exposure, whether through books, podcasts, television, social media, or conversations, gradually forms emotional patterns. These patterns become habits that dictate how you react, how you make decisions, and how you move through life. Your emotional responses are therefore predictable, measurable, and directly linked to what you consistently allow into your mental space. Your mind does not distinguish between what is true and what is vividly imagined or repeatedly suggested. If you continually expose yourself to fear-based thoughts or images of failure, your emotional state will align with those inputs. You will experience anxiety, stress, and a sense of hopelessness, not because the world is inherently threatening, but because your mind has been conditioned to perceive it as such. On the other hand, consistent exposure to ideas that inspire, motivate, and educate creates an emotional climate of resilience, optimism, and confidence. Your heart, mind, and body begin to synchronize with the possibilities presented by empowering thoughts. And your energy shifts in a way that attracts favorable circumstances, better relationships, and greater clarity. This is why it is said that the mind is a powerful weather system. Whatever you feed it becomes the climate you live in. And that climate governs your entire life experience. You cannot separate what you think from what you feel because every thought carries an emotional charge. Repetition intensifies this charge. When you repeatedly dwell on problems, your emotional climate becomes heavy with worry and frustration. When you repeatedly dwell on possibilities, your emotional climate becomes light with hope and motivation. This is why discipline in mental consumption is critical. It is not enough to simply try to think positively in passing. You must consistently engage your mind with ideas that foster peace, clarity, and empowerment. Just as you would not allow a polluted river to nourish your crops, you cannot allow harmful or toxic thoughts to shape the fertile soil of your inner life. The content you consume daily determines whether your emotional climate will be stormy, turbulent, and destructive, or calm, productive, and aligned with your highest potential. Protecting your mental gate with intentionality is one of the most critical practices you can develop if you desire a life of clarity, purpose, and fulfillment. Every day, countless ideas, opinions, distractions, and influences attempt to enter your mind. Some of these are helpful, while others are destructive. And yet most people allow their mind to become a dumping ground for anything and everything without consideration or discernment. The mental gate is your ability to filter what you allow to enter your inner world. It is the conscious practice of deciding which thoughts, messages, and influences will be entertained and which will be rejected. Without this gate, your mind becomes a chaotic battlefield where external noise dictates your emotions, actions, and decisions. You are no longer the master of your life. You become a product of the input you receive. Intentionality at this level is not optional. It is a prerequisite for personal growth, emotional stability, and long-term success. Every person, situation, and piece of information that comes to you carries the potential to influence your thinking, whether you realize it or not. Negative opinions, criticism, gossip, fear-driven news, toxic social interaction, and unproductive habits all attempt to enter the mental gate. If you do not actively protect this gate, these influences will seep in and take root, shaping your mindset in ways that limit your potential. The mind is not a passive organ. It actively absorbs, processes, and stores whatever passes through the gate. The consequence of a poorly guarded mental gate is a life controlled by external circumstances where your emotions are reactive instead of intentional, and your thoughts are dictated by others instead of guided by your purpose. This is why it is vital to develop discernment and awareness of what you allow inside. You must recognize that not all voices deserve your attention, not all opinions deserve your validation, and not all content deserves your engagement. Protecting your mental gate requires discipline and awareness. It is the conscious decision to avoid unnecessary mental clutter and focus only on what elevates your thinking, strengthens your resolve, and aligns with your vision. It is a daily practice of saying no to distractions, doubts, and harmful influences, and saying yes to ideas, knowledge, and experiences that contribute to your growth. Just as a physical gate protects your home from intruders, your mental gate protects your inner world from harmful intrusion. Every thought, conversation, or piece of media that passes through this gate has the power to shape your identity, affect your emotional state, and influence your action. Therefore, you must take full responsibility for what enters, because whatever passes through will ultimately shape your destiny. Most people do not realize that protecting the mental gate is not about avoiding reality or isolating themselves from the world. It is about choosing consciously what will shape their mind, emotions, and life. You cannot control every external factor, but you can control what you allow to influence your inner landscape. This requires awareness of your vulnerabilities and a recognition of what triggers negative thinking, fear, or distraction. It also requires courage, because often the pressure to conform to social norms, popular opinion, or the expectations of others can make it tempting to lower the gate and let anything enter. Intentionality in mental protection is about resisting that temptation and committing to the responsibility of self-mastery. It is about understanding that your mind is sacred, that your thoughts are the foundation of your reality, and that whatever passes through your gate has the power to build or destroy the life you are capable of living. Protecting the mental gate also involves actively seeking influences that elevate your thinking. It is not enough to simply block harmful input. You must also feed your mind with ideas that inspire growth, courage, and creativity. This includes surrounding yourself with people who challenge you positively, consuming content that motivates and educates, and engaging in practices that strengthen your focus, discipline, and purpose. The gate is not just a barrier, is also a channel that directs powerful, life-giving ideas into your inner world. When you guard it with intention, you create an environment where your mind can flourish, where clarity and peace become the default, and where your decisions and actions are aligned with your highest potential. This is why the mental gate is perhaps the most powerful tool you have. It determines the quality of your thoughts, the strength of your emotions, the clarity of your decisions, and the trajectory of your life. Every day, your mental gate is tested. You will encounter countless ideas, challenges, opinions, and distractions. Some of these are subtle, creeping in unnoticed, while others are blatant, demanding your attention. The difference between those who thrive and those who struggle lies in the ability to protect the gate intentionally. The stronger and more disciplined your gate, the more control you have over your internal world, your emotional climate, and the outcomes of your life. Intentional mental protection is not a one-time act. It is a daily, conscious commitment to yourself. It requires vigilance, self-awareness, and the willingness to prioritize your mind above convenience, comfort, or the approval of others. The quality of your life will always reflect the quality of what you allow to enter your mind, because the mind is the most fertile ground you will ever cultivate. And your mental gate determines whether that ground produces weeds or abundant harvest. Your mind has the extraordinary power to either create your destiny or destroy it, and this power is determined by the quality of the thoughts you consistently allow to occupy it. Many people live as though their mind is simply a passive organ, a neutral instrument that reacts to life's circumstances, but in reality, the mind is an active creator. Every thought, idea, and belief you entertain sets into motion a chain reaction that shapes your actions, influences your decisions, and ultimately constructs the life you live. If you feed your mind with empowering thoughts, the outcome is growth, opportunity, and achievement. If you feed it with limiting beliefs, fear, and negativity, the outcome is stagnation, frustration, and missed potential. Your destiny is not dictated by luck, circumstances, or the opinions of others. It is dictated by what dominates your mind on a daily, consistent basis. The mind is the architect of your future, and what you permit it to design will either elevate you or confine you. The power of the mind lies in its ability to translate thought into reality. Thoughts are not abstract. They are instructions. They guide your behavior, influence your habits, and shape the choices you make without you even realizing it. For example, if you consistently entertain thoughts of limitation, you will unconsciously make decisions that keep you small. You will avoid challenges, resist growth, and settle for less than you deserve. Conversely, if you cultivate thoughts of possibility, abundance, and confidence, you will find yourself drawn to opportunities, motivated to take action, and resilient in the face of setbacks. Your mind acts like a magnet, attracting circumstances, relationships, and experiences that align with the thoughts you dominate your consciousness. This is why mental discipline is not optional. It is the single most influential factor in determining the trajectory of your life. Destruction begins subtly, often in ways that are invisible to the conscious mind. Negative self-talk, repeated doubts, unresolved fears, and unexamined beliefs act like termites in the foundation of your potential. They quietly weaken your resolve, distort your perception, and limit your capacity to take bold action. Many people fail not because they lack talent, intelligence, or resources, but because their minds have been conditioned to expect failure, scarcity, or inadequacy. These mental patterns act as invisible barriers, convincing you to stay within the confines of comfort and mediocrity. The destructive force of the mind is insidious because it masquerades as reality. It tells you what is true, safe based on repeated conditioning, even when it is holding you back from the life you were meant to live. If left unchecked, these patterns become habitual, and habits shape your destiny more powerfully than intention alone ever could. Creation, on the other hand, is deliberate. When you intentionally feed your mind with thoughts that inspire growth, courage, and vision, you activate its creative power. Every idea, affirmation, and visualization you hold begins to organize your behavior, sharpen your focus, and attract circumstances that align with your purpose. The mind responds not only to what you consciously think, but also to what you repeatedly immerse it in. Reading empowering books, listening to uplifting content, surrounding yourself with people who challenge you positively, and consistently envisioning your goals all serve as nourishment for your mental garden. Over time, this repeated exposure to constructive input rewires your thinking, strengthens your resilience, and expands your capacity to achieve. The mind, when cultivated intentionally, becomes a generator of opportunities, solutions, and breakthroughs. It does not wait for external validation, it creates it. Understanding that your mind can create or destroy your destiny also places immense responsibility in your hands. No one else is fully accountable for the quality of your thoughts, the beliefs you accept, or the mental environment you nurture. Life will offer distractions, critics, failures, and setbacks. But how you respond depends entirely on the condition of your mind. If you allow negativity to dominate, you will react impulsively, doubt excessively, and limit your own potential. If you cultivate clarity, discipline, and positive mental habits, you will respond strategically, act decisively, and navigate challenges with confidence. Your mind is like a field of fertile soil. If you plant seeds of greatness, it produces abundance. If you plant seeds of fear or limitation, it produces scarcity. The choice is yours, and the consequences are profound because your mind shapes not only your present, but the trajectory of every tomorrow. The creative or destructive power of the mind is amplified over time. Every day, small, seemingly insignificant thoughts accumulate and begin to form a dominant narrative about who you are and what your life can be. This narrative becomes your internal reality, your default mindset, and the lens through which you interpret every experience. Destructive thoughts left unchecked will compound into self-sabotage, missed opportunities, and a diminished sense of self-worth. Constructive thoughts, on the other hand, compound into self-confidence, clarity, and extraordinary achievement. The mind is relentless in its execution. It always produces results But the nature of those results, determined entirely by the input you feed it, the focus you maintain, and the beliefs you cultivate. This is why choosing what your mind consumes is the most profound decision you can make, because it determines whether your life becomes a masterpiece or a casualty of unexamined mental patterns. Elevating your mindset by choosing higher thoughts daily is the most transformative practice you can develop, because the quality of your thoughts directly determines the quality of your life. Your mind is not a passive observer. It is an active creator, constantly shaping your perceptions, emotions, and actions based on the input it receives. If you allow your thoughts to wander aimlessly or absorb content that diminishes your potential, your mindset will remain small, reactive, and limited. On the other hand, if you intentionally choose thoughts that inspire, challenge, and expand your understanding, your mindset begins to rise, creating new possibilities, clarity, and personal power. Elevating your mind is not about occasional inspiration or temporary motivation. It is about daily commitment, consistent input, and the conscious decision to occupy your mental space with ideas that push you toward your highest potential. The mind responds to what it is fed, just as a garden flourishes when it receives the right nutrients, sunlight, and water. Your mind flourishes when it receives thoughts that cultivate growth, courage, and creativity. Every book you read, every video you watch, every conversation you participate in, and every idea you dwell on becomes nourishment for your mental landscape. When you repeatedly expose yourself to wisdom, possibility, and empowerment, your mental patterns begin to shift. You start to notice solutions instead of problems, opportunities instead of obstacles, and growth instead of stagnation. This is why it is essential to be intentional about what you allow into your consciousness. Elevating your mindset requires careful selection of influences, discipline in mental habits, and a commitment to filling your inner world with thoughts that align with the life you aspire to live. Choosing higher thoughts daily also means taking responsibility for the state of your mind. Most people drift through life without examining the quality of their internal dialogue. They allow fear, doubt, and negativity to dominate, often without realizing it. Elevating your mindset requires awareness, self-reflection, and the courage to challenge thoughts that are small, limiting, or unproductive. It is about recognizing that you are the gatekeeper of your mental environment, and that whatever dominates your mind will dominate your life. Higher thoughts lead to higher feelings, and higher feelings lead to higher actions. The sequence is clear. What you consistently think determines how you feel, and how you feel determines how you act. By choosing thoughts that uplift, inspire, and expand, you begin to act in alignment with your highest potential, attracting experiences, opportunities, and relationships that reflect the elevated state of your mind. Repetition is critical in this process. The mind thrives on repeated input. What you dwell on daily becomes your dominant mental program, shaping your beliefs, behaviors, and identity. If you focus on fear, scarcity, or limitation, those patterns become ingrained, controlling your decisions and responses. Conversely, if you focus on abundance, possibility, and empowerment, those patterns also become ingrained, guiding your life toward growth, fulfillment, and achievement. Elevating your mindset is therefore not about occasional bursts of positive thinking. It is about consistent, daily mental discipline. It is about choosing thoughts that expand your vision, increase your resilience, and strengthen your capacity to achieve, even when circumstances are challenging. Your daily mental diet determines whether you remain small or grow into the person you were meant to be. Choosing higher thoughts also requires conscious avoidance of mental pollution. Not every idea, opinion, or piece of content deserves access to your mind. Negativity, criticism, fear-based narratives, and toxic influences are everywhere. And if you allow them to dominate your thinking, your mindset will shrink. Your confidence will erode, and your ability to take meaningful action will diminish. Elevating your mind means protecting your mental space from harmful input, while intentionally seeking information, experiences, and relationships that inspire, educate, and motivate. It is the practice of mental hygiene, of clearing out what diminishes you and making space for what elevates you. The more disciplined you become in this process, the stronger your mindset grows and the more capable you become of navigating challenges, embracing opportunity, and living in alignment with your purpose. The impact of choosing higher thoughts is cumulative. Each day you intentionally fill your mind with constructive ideas, your mental capacity expands, Your perspective broadens. Your emotional resilience strengthens. Your creativity increases. Your focus sharpens. You begin to see possibilities where before you saw limitations. You attract circumstances that match your elevated state because energy follows thought. And the mind draws into your life what corresponds with its dominant patterns. Elevating your mindset is therefore both an inward and outward process. Inwardly, it reshapes your beliefs, attitudes, and emotional state. Outwardly, it transforms your reality, influencing the opportunities, relationships, and experiences you attract. Every thought you choose is a building block in the architecture of your destiny, and when those thoughts are of the highest quality, your life inevitably rises to match the caliber of your mind. To maintain an elevated mindset, you must practice intentionality daily. It is not enough to occasionally think inspiring thoughts. Your mind must be consistently exposed to ideas that foster growth, clarity, and empowerment. Daily rituals such as reading, reflecting, meditating, or listening to uplifting content create patterns that strengthen your mental resilience. Over time, these practices shift your internal operating system, allowing you to respond to challenges with creativity and composure, to see opportunity in adversity, and to act with confidence and purpose. Elevating your mindset is a lifelong discipline, a conscious commitment to excellence in thought, and a recognition that the quality of your life is a direct reflection of the quality of your mind.